He served in Vietnam not only one tour of duty, but 2 tours of duty and was wounded in action. He has served our government under 5 presidents. He was the first African American and the youngest officer ever to serve as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And in 1995, his autobiography, which is up here, was on the national bestsellers list. And he, in the polls, was a leading candidate for the next president of the United States. He took himself out of that running to serve as a volunteer in chairing America's Promise Alliance for Youth. And we are very honored and very fortunate to have with us here General Powell.
Come on in, all you hardy banded youngsters. I come from Washington, D.C., and if we had snow like this, we all would have been home at least 5 hours ago. It's a great pleasure to be with you. I'm on a whirlwind tour through this part of Illinois. Came in last night, spoke in Chicago this morning, and then just spent a few moments over at the Sears headquarters. And we had a chance to talk to some 2,000 Sears employees in their corporate headquarters about volunteerism and about serving the nation. And then pleased to have an invitation from my cousin Dale Wentz, who's the director of admissions, to drop by and spend a few moments with you on my way back to the airport. And on the way back to the airport, I'll stop at Allstate, which is another one of my corporate partners in the work that I do in volunteering and working with young people. And then on to Kansas this afternoon for another appearance tonight. So even though I took myself out of politics, sometimes it feels like I'm on the political campaign trail as I bounce around the country. But I never miss an opportunity to have a chance to talk to young people. But more than just talk to young people, have young people talk to me. So I'm just going to say a few words, and then in the limited time that we have, I'd be more than happy to entertain your questions and see what's on your mind more so than what's on my mind. What I'd like to do, though, is use my book as a prop, because my cousin Dale thinks I'm very, very important. But maybe you don't think I'm very, very important, or maybe I used to be important, but I'm not that important now. But just to put you into perspective as to who I was once upon a time, I put this very fancy picture on the cover of my book. And if you look closely, and you may not all be able to see it, but there's a picture of me in my 4-star general's uniform with my left shoulder leaning forward to show off the 4 stars. And there are 4 stars on the right shoulder. And when I had my hat on, there'd be 4 more stars on my hat. So when I came down the street, there were something like 12 stars blazing away, because I was a big shot. I was a general. I was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I was an advisor to presidents. I had under my supervision 3 million active duty and reserve troops and millions civilians, thousands of installations around the world, the largest corporation in the world, the largest hospital system, educational system. It was a big deal. And so chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was a very prestigious position. And I thought it was right to put this picture on the front of the book. But then I put a very different kind of picture on the back of the book. On the back of the book, I have a picture which I think you'll be able to see a little more clearly. Not a 4-star general with a lot of stars in his shoulder who was a big shot, but of a kid about 10 years old, living in the South Bronx section of New York, dressed up in this absolutely horrible outfit. I don't know if you can see it, but my parents dressed me up in this hideous suit with short pants, knee socks, huge shoes because I had huge feet at this age, and with this absolutely abominable handkerchief in my pocket. And there they took me to a photographer's studio to pose their 10-year-old darling on this little chair and this little table with a book opened as if I'm actually studying the book. Because this is what immigrant families did in my day and age in New York City. Take their kid who was having trouble in the 4th grade at this time, clean him up real good, dress him up, make him look like somebody, and let's hope for the best. And when I talk to students, I like to say, you know, you don't start out like this, you really start out like that. All of you at one time or another have had this picture taken by your parents, a picture in which they put all their love and their expectation and their anticipation of what you're going to do in life into that picture when they take it and they look at it admiringly. But the challenge for each of us in life, and for young people in life, is how do you get from the back cover of your book to the front of your book? I don't know where the front of your book is, what that picture will look like in due course. Will it be in the military? Will it be as a doctor? Will it be as a teacher? Will it be as a mechanic? Will it be as an administrator? I don't know. But I do know that all of you here in this room now are traveling that road. You're somewhere around the bend, heading toward the front side of that book. And now is the most important time in your life to develop the habits and the attitudes and the disciplines and the skills you're going to need to be successful, whatever that picture turns out to be. Attitudes of hard work, attitudes of believing in yourself, attitudes of self-confidence, attitudes that relate to learning from failure, how to deal with disappointment. Life hands you blows. Life is not always kind, makes you feel bad some days when you don't do well on a test or everything seems to be going against you. How do you deal with that? How do you learn to deal from failure so that the next day you come back again ready to give it another shot? Because that's what life is all about, dealing with problems, dealing with failure, always believing in yourself. How do you take advantage of a wonderful institution such as the school to make sure that you are getting all that your teachers come here every day to give you? The best role models you have in your life other than your parents are the teachers who come here every day to share with you their love, their experience, their education, and to pass it on to the next generation. They have expectations for you, and all I ask of you is that you respond to those expectations by your own hard work, your own attitude, your own belief in yourself. All of these will take you toward a life of success. Mastering our native language, the English language, making sure you become information literate in a very information-driven world, making sure that you are living lives of character. Somebody asked me the other day if I would go sit on a panel talking about political character in American life today, or business character, the character of business leaders. And I said, no, I'm not going to waste my time, because character is not formed after people become politicians or business leaders. Character is formed in school and at home. It begins at the age of 2 when you start to teach a child the difference between right and wrong and how to have a sense of shame, and to always stay away from those things that are wrong because they will hurt you and because they bring shame upon you and upon your family. And how to do those things in life that are right. That's what you're doing now, molding your character by sticking to the right, staying away from the wrong, and don't let people confuse you. You have a conscience. There is a code in your life, whether it's a religious code or the code you receive from your parents, which tells you instinctively what right is. And as part of growing up, you have to bury that, hardwire that on your hard disk deep inside, what right is and how to keep to the right and stay away from the wrong, which will bring shame upon you and bring shame upon yourself. It is so wonderful to be living in this country today. You see a lot of problems on television, presidents being impeached, and there are problems here and problems in Iraq and problems there in other parts of the world, and problems in our society, racial problems and other kinds of problems. But fundamentally, you are living in the greatest country on earth with the most resilient political and cultural system on earth. I've never seen anything like it. I've traveled widely throughout the world. No nation can deal with its problems like we can deal with ours, and we get through it, all on the basis of this wonderful constitutional system that our founding fathers gave us. But one of the things we have to do to make sure we get through these difficult times that occasionally face us is to make sure that all of us are doing our part as citizens. And so as you become a little older, as you grow, and as you become that age of political awareness, make sure you register and you vote. And at this point in your life, when you're a little bit short of that, make sure that you take advantage of the programs that this school has that allows you to serve others, that allows you, even at this early stage in your life, to understand the gift you get from giving to others. That's what I'm doing with my life now at my advanced age. What am I doing with my life? I'm no longer a soldier, I'm no longer an author. I'm devoting my energies to volunteerism and to helping youngsters that don't have the kinds of opportunities that you have in this school. Helping youngsters who wonder if there is an American dream there for them. And so I'm working on getting more mentors out to sign up to be mentors and get in the lives of children and be an adult presence. I'm working on creating more boys and girls clubs, more YMCA programs and after-school programs to take care of children who live in bad neighborhoods. And if there isn't some program like this, then they'll find a gang in the street to hang out with.
I'm trying to avoid situations like you saw in the papers this morning or over the weekend of the 23-year-old man who killed a police officer because he didn't want to get arrested again for stealing a car and going back to jail. And I say to myself, my God, how did it ever get to this, where this man at the age of 23 is already a convict, and we missed him. We did not build character into his life earlier so that he would stay away from this life of crime, and now his life is ruined, and he's killed the life of a wonderful police officer trying to do his job. And those of us who have the ability to get in the lives of young people and touch them and turn them around should do that. And that's what I'm trying to encourage more and more Americans to do with America's Promise. And so I just wanted to say to you how very pleased I am to be with you, to tell you to stick to the right, stay away from the wrong, develop those habits of character, of hard work, of education, of doing the job you have to do today. Do it today. Prepare for tomorrow. Dream about the future. Don't get those things confused. Don't dream about today. Do the job today. Life is a series of challenges. Problems come. Learn to deal with failure. There's only one thing you should do with failure, and that's learn from failure. People say to me, we are successful. You never had any problems. I have problems all the time. I have problems every day. But the one thing I've learned by age almost 62, that when a problem comes your way and you don't handle it well, you fail. What you do is sit down, look at it again, squeeze out of it all the education you can. What did I do wrong? Not what did somebody do to me, or how did I let somebody else influence me, but what did I do wrong? And once you've figured it out and you've learned your own lesson, then internalize it. Take that failure, take yesterday's disappointment, roll it up, throw it away, forget about it, never look back, and just look for the promise of tomorrow. And above all, believe in yourselves, and even above that, believe in this wonderful country that you live in. Even with all its problems, there is no place else like it on the face of the earth. And you should be all very, very proud and consider yourself fortunate to have the opportunities ahead of you that this country offers. And if you don't like it, you're going to be the leaders. You can change it all and fix it all when your time comes, but only if you prepare yourself and only if you're ready when those challenges come. I stop right there and see if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me. Yes, sir.
What was going through my mind when you were a kid? Were you thinking I want to be a boy here all over, I was going to see what happens? What was going through
What was going through my mind when I was a kid? Did I think I'd want to be a war hero, or did I just say, I'll see what comes? It was the latter. I just said I'd see what comes. I did not have a clue, not a clue. I was having trouble in elementary school. My parents were worried about me. My cousins snickered at me. I was the slow one. I couldn't get into a good high school. I got into the high school where they sent everybody who couldn't get into a good high school. Barely got out with a C average. Really kind of a wandering around kid. But then I went into college, public college, and suddenly I discovered something that I was good at. I was good at being a soldier. And I went into ROTC, and bingo, I found something in life that I loved doing, and I gave it everything I had. Straight A's. Only thing I ever got straight A's in. And that'll happen to you. Don't follow my path of being a slow student and getting C's. You can do better than that. But just keep looking for that one thing that comes along that you love doing and turns you on, and that'll be the answer for you. Don't worry about it now. Lots of things will come and go. Don't worry about what college you're going to yet. Some of you in the back of the room better worry, but you don't have to worry. But just let life come. But what you're doing now is just preparing yourself for when that magic moment comes that says, this is it. I never knew when it was coming. And even after I went in the Army, I didn't know that was it. It took a few years before I realized this is what I want to do. And it took a while to convince my parents. They kept saying, come on out. Nobody in this family's ever stayed in the Army. Come on out. When are you going to come out? You've been to Vietnam once. You served your time. You've been to Vietnam twice. That's enough. Come home. And then finally, when I made general, my mother accepted it. It was now my son the general. Back there? Yes, dear. how can we help, how is America's Promise, my organization, going to help schools that are in trouble, that need more assistance, more help, more adults working in that school? We're doing a number of things. I've adopted a school in Washington, D.C., in a poor neighborhood. It is now my school. I have people from my church who work in that school. I'm getting my business friends to invest in that school. And we're starting to turn those kids around. They have suddenly discovered there are a lot more responsible adults in their lives who are bringing resources to bear, and it's turning them around. Put 100 computers in the school over the summer. Kids proudly walk around with their access cards now. They won't go home after school because they're lined up in the library, and they don't want the librarian to go home because they want to stay on the internet all afternoon. And we also make sure we know what they're doing on the internet all afternoon. But that's turning them on. I'm getting corporations all across America to do more and more of that. Partner with a specific school, bring the assets of the corporation to bear in that school. I talked to the people at Sears, 2,000 employees today, but there are 300,000 employees of Sears, getting them more involved in tutoring and mentoring in community schools near those community Sears stores. And the chairman of Sears today volunteered that he would go from 150,000 hours to 300,000 on the way to 1 million hours of volunteer service to communities in need throughout the Sears Roebuck empire. Yes, sir. How much community service did I do as a kid? Not much. There wasn't that much of an opportunity, as best I recall. Most of the service in the community was handled by the community itself in terms of what the church did, in terms of boys and girls clubs, and I didn't really have an opportunity, although when I go through my high school yearbook, I discover, you may find this difficult to believe, but at my age you forget a lot of stuff. But when I go back through my high school yearbook, I discover I was one of the one of the leaders of the service club at Morris High School. So we were doing some things in the community, but I'm afraid my memory fails me as to exactly what we were doing. But every time I see that picture, I feel proud of myself all over again for whatever it was I was doing. Yes, ma'am. How did I plan to do that? How did I decide to do this or come to this conclusion? Oh, how do I pay for it? In a number of ways. We get grants from foundations. As soon as I leave you, I'm going over to Allstate. And Allstate has committed close to $500,000 to support our efforts over a period of several years. So corporations are coming forward, personal donations. And this is not church, so I'm not going to hand out a plate, but I pick up donations everywhere I can. Let me come over here. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, when you were a child, was your family rich, middle class, or what?
We were poor. Both my parents worked. My mother was a seamstress, sewing cloth together in the garment industry in New York City, and my father was a shipping clerk. And I don't think either one of them ever made more than $60 a week. So we were poor, but I never wanted for anything. There was always food in the house. If I needed clothing, I got clothing. I had a bike. We never wanted for anything. And I never thought I was poor because the family was rich in so many other things. Two hardworking parents who were an inspiration to me. And they did what they did so that my sister and I could be successful in life. So even though we didn't have much money, we were never in want, and we were rich in terms of family, if not in terms of material goods.
Do you believe that community service or service learning should be integral part of
Yeah. Yeah, the question is, do I believe that service learning or community service should be made an integral, meaning mandatory part of educational experience? Yes, I do. And more states are adopting it. The state of Maryland, for example, requires 75 hours of community service in high school, or you don't graduate. You get a letter from the governor saying, bingo, you're not graduating. And then suddenly people are racing all over trying to get their hours in. I think it's good. I think it's good for you. It's the way you shouldn't make it mandatory. You shouldn't make it a requirement. Well, we got lots of requirements in life, for algebra and English and lots of other things. And service to community, I think, helps develop a better citizen and gives you a set of tools and a set of values and a virtue that you can take into adult life. You'll be a better American as a result of it. Yes, ma'am. Julie will help you. What I'd like to see all of you do, see if there's some way to partner with schools that might need youngsters like you to help younger children learn to read, if there's some way to do that. If you could, I've read about all the programs that you already have here. Continue those, expand those. I understand that service learning and community service is an integral part of your curriculum, so expand those. Volunteered at a hospice or a Boys and Girls Club. You're probably not too old, almost too young to be a big sister to somebody in need. But it's all a question of whether you can find the time and if you can get to where the need is. That's the hard part. Yes, sir. Yeah, how does it hit you? Yeah, it's a great question. He said, "Okay, a soldier is what you became, but how did it happen? Did some spark go off? Did it happen all at once, or did it kind of grow on you?" In my case, it happened almost all at once. I graduated from high school when I was 16, a few months before my 17th birthday. Too young to be going to college. Wasn't a great high school student. I got thrown into college because my mother said, "You're going to college. That's all there is to it." I was never asked. Nobody asked me. You're going to college. So I go to college, and my parents tell me, "You ought to go in engineering. That's where the money is." Okay, I go in engineering. I don't know anything about engineering. I don't like math, which is a very great disadvantage if one wants to be an engineer. And so they throw me in engineering, and then they put me into an architectural drawing class, and I'm totally lost. Don't know what I'm doing. But about that same time, I see a bunch of guys going by in uniform, marching, the ROTC cadets. I take a look at that, and I inquire, very shy, nervous, but I inquire. It looks like something I ought to do because they're going to draft me into the Army anyway. And I joined that group, and within a few weeks, that was me. I loved the discipline, I loved the structure, I liked the marching and the drilling, I liked things military, and I never looked back. Will it come to you that way in some way, whether it's doctor, lawyer, who knows what? I don't know. It may come slowly. It may not. It may take 3 times. I mean, the first thing that occurs to you in the first profession you head out on or job you head out on, that may not be the only one. It may go through 2 or 3 before you find out what you do. But this I'll tell you, as you start to decide about your future, don't worry so much about whether or not you can become president of the country or president of a company or how much money you can make. Just make sure that that which you pick to do is something that you love doing and that gives you satisfaction and that will give you the wherewithal to raise a family, that will give you the wherewithal to live comfortably, but also give you enough time to give back to society, to serve the society. It'll come. It'll come. Yes, sir.
What kind of results are you getting from your volunteering, and what kind of results do you expect to get in the future?
Results are pretty good. I get more and more states joining up. Governor Edgar was one of my great supporters, and I'm sure Governor Ryan will be. More and more states are organizing their states along the 5 goals that I'm working on. South Carolina, Virginia, North Carolina. They've essentially taken America's Promise, made it the North Carolina Promise, the South Carolina Promise, the Utah Promise, and the Michigan Promise, Illinois Promise, and putting it into their communities. I'm getting good corporate response, as I indicated today, just in this one afternoon. I'll be at Sears and at Allstate. And everywhere I travel now, in the course of my travels, I come across more and more companies that want to be a part of it. So I'm getting a good response. We're touching the lives of hundreds of thousands of youngsters. Where do I want it all to end? I wish there was no child that was without the presence of a caring adult or having a safe place or having a healthy start in life or getting the kind of skills required for the 21st century economy. But I doubt that I'll be able to solve or will be able to solve that problem in my lifetime. But we'll do a lot to help a lot of youngsters and turn a lot of kids around. Yes, sir.
You said you learned from failure. What do you think is like the biggest, or the most important failure you've learned?
Biggest failure. Well, I've had bad days in combat when things didn't go well. You see people die around you. You wonder, could I have done something differently? The greatest kind of personal failure is when someone tells you you're not good. Does that hurt? When someone says, you know, I don't think you're that good. You didn't do the job right, and therefore I'm not going to advance you, or that kind of failure, not of a situation, but where you have personally been found wanting. And it's happened many times in my life, where you have to go home that night and take a hard look at yourself and say, was that person right, or do I have, quote, a personality conflict, or they're down on me, or they're hassling me? Or do you take a hard look at yourself and say, he's right, she's right, and I better get my act together? Can you get your act together? Can you come back from that kind of personal affront to your well-being, to yourself? Those, to me, were the most difficult situations. I've had battles that didn't go well. I've had bureaucratic problems, didn't get the assignment I wanted. But the ones that hurt the most is when somebody tells you that you have personally failed, or you are not meeting their standards, or you're not that good. And those are the ones that take the most out of you. But the ones that take the most out of you are also the ones that give you the greatest opportunity to learn about yourself and to come back the next day and prove them wrong. That's what I always try to do. I'm going to get you. I'm going to prove you're wrong. I'm not going to get even. I'm just going to prove you're wrong by outperforming any measure you put before me. Yes, ma'am. What was the reason I declined the presidency? Well, it wasn't quite them coming up and saying, here, you're president, to run. Yeah. After I retired from the Army after 35 years, my wife, 33 years, just took a hard look at who I was, what the needs of the family were. And I found that I'm still, even in retirement, pretty much a soldier, and I don't find active political life to my liking, in the sense that it's something I could do with passion and commitment. And you have to bring that to the political equation if you're going to be successful. I didn't have that, and I didn't want to deceive myself. It's kind of, talking about the young man, you have the spark, or you don't have the spark, and I didn't. But beyond that, if I could have gotten on top of that, it was not something my family wanted to do. And at the end of the day, it's your family that's the most important thing in your life. You'll serve the nation, and I did serve the nation for 35 years as a soldier. Now I'm trying to serve the nation in another way. So I always feel an obligation to serve the nation, but I couldn't do it in that particular way. But there seems to be no shortage of candidates as I look through the newspaper every morning. Yes, ma'am.
Was there anybody who was a role model for you, or was there anybody who tried to stop you or something like that?
The greatest role models of my life, my parents. They were two wonderful people. And it was from them, as a child, that I became who I am. And that's how you're being developed now to be who you will be for the rest of your lives. It doesn't get fixed when you're 25. You're getting it now. And I got that from my parents, the other adults in my life, the relatives in my life. Did anybody ever try to stop me? Of course, in my adult life, yeah, I had quite a few people that tried to stop me. But not as a child. As a child, I was raised in an environment of encouragement. And I was raised in a family where even those that weren't doing well, me, were regarded equally in terms of love and respect and support as those who were going to go to Oxford, the University of London, and all the great schools. I was not heading in that direction. But I was always considered to be equal to any of them, even though I might not be as successful. And as I reached, as I reached my current age and looked at all my cousins, we've all had varying degrees of success in our life, but we all are equal within the family. Because at the end of the day, it's alla familia. It's family is what it's all about. It's having other people in your life who love you and care about you, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference where you finally ended up in life, as long as it was a good life, earning a living, raising a family. Title, money means nothing in my family. I'm just Colin. And don't give us that chairman stuff. Don't give me that front of the book stuff, pal. You're just another cousin, and that's the way it ought to be. I'll take two more, then I do have to get to Allstate, Kansas. Yes, sir.
How many schools do you plan to help?
We have, as many as we can. We're doing it in several different ways. We have something called Schools of Promise, where we take a school in need marry it with a corporate champion, someone who can bring resources. And then we send in other people who can mobilize all the assets of the community to help that school. We're trying to create 4,000 of those around the country. We're also working on something called schools and colleges and universities of promise. We have a lot of wonderful universities and colleges in America, but too many of them just sit behind their ivy walls or behind their gates, and they have terrible problems in the communities around them. And we're trying to break that pattern. Howard University in Washington, I'm on the board of that university, a great university, and I spoke to a lot of their students yesterday. We've got to get those students across the wall and out into those elementary and middle schools around the college and help those youngsters. University of Southern California is another example of the University of Promise, where it's a beautiful campus in a bad part of LA, Los Angeles, and now they're going beyond the walls. The teachers, the students, the scholarship money, they're identifying second graders and promising those kids a full scholarship at the University of Southern California if they keep their grades up and if they allow themselves to be helped by the people at USC. So I'm trying to get more and more universities to do that. Now I got to take one last one. So how far back can I go? The young lady in the blue. Which of our goals is most difficult, and why do I think that is? They're all difficult. I think the one that is the most important, but is also going to be most difficult, is the first one, which is mentoring, where you're asking busy people who are working 2 jobs in the family and raising their own children to give up a few hours of their time to help somebody else's child that may not live in their neighborhood. That's a big sacrifice. But most people who do it, and tens of thousands do it, find that it brings joy to them and to their family. In effect, it helps their family grow, and they're willing to do it. But the need is so great. When we've had about a 25% increase in the number of big brothers and big sisters since we started, but the demand has probably doubled. The more I talk about mentoring, the more youngsters show up wanting mentoring compared to the number of additional mentors we can receive. So it's a difficult one to stay on top of, and it's our most important. Thank you all very, very much, and I wish you all the best.
Go around that way and get through.
Bye, everybody.
Would
Thank
you all
you.
stay where you are, give him a hand?